I'm Pam England, and I'm going to be introducing Nora Niculescu to the birth story medicine community. She is a recently certified birth story medicine tutor. So welcome, Nora.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. And you got my name perfectly well. I know it's not easy to pronounce my family name in English, but you got it perfectly.
Well, thank you. So Nora is from Romania. Tell us where you're from. What city are you from, and what part of Romania is it in?
I'm from the northwest of the country, in a city called Cluj-Napoca, and it's actually in the area that is known as Transylvania. And people around the world might be familiar with Transylvania because this is where the Dracula story was born.
Have you ever seen a vampire?
No, I wish. No, it didn't happen.
How you came to birth story medicine, because it's not that well known 4 years ago, and how you've come to be a birth story mentor tutor.
Well, what brought me to birth story medicine in the first place was my own search for integration and new meaning regarding my son's birth. So 7 years ago, when Timmy, my son, was born, people could say that I had a fairly uneventful medical birth, but for me it felt very different because it shook me to the core, as it happens, I would say, often with many women around the world. And I found myself going back to moments of my birth over and over and over again, usually during the night after my son was finally asleep, and I could be with my own thoughts. And I was trying so hard to understand what happened. Why do I feel like that? And actually, I was just Googling. I think I Googled ways to integrate the birth experience. And this is what got me to the birth story medicine website that was available 4 years ago. Now we have a new one, which looks really, really nice. And I saw that you just started a class a week before. So I sent an email to the office asking if I can join that group, even though the course already started. And the answer was, no, you have to wait for the next course to start. And so I had to wait. But in the meantime, I already started doing therapy for this, to process and integrate my birth experience. And I was in therapy for about a year and a half, looking at what happened from all different angles, and I was really trying to make sense. And then the next course happened, and you let me know that I could join the class. And this is how my birth story medicine journey started 4 years ago. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Biggest influence for you?
For me, I would say the biggest influence was the part around focusing on solutions rather than problem. And this was also my strongest challenge. So the biggest impression and the strongest challenge at the same time, because it was not so easy for me in the beginning to make the switch, from a problem-focused mindset to a solution-focused mindset. This also has to do with the fact that my background is in psychology, and I was trained in cognitive behavioral psychology. So I grew up, in a way, analyzing the problem, and everything was around the problem. Even in my therapy session, as I said, I looked at the problem from many different angles, which is efficient, and it works. And you go back to the roots from where it all started, growing up, and the belief system and all that. And at the same time, for me, it felt that it took longer. Even when I think about it, 1 year and a half in therapy only to process the birth experience, a not so traumatic birth experience, as I said, some might say, it took a long time. And what really amazed me when I started the course with you is that I could really see, feel, and understand, so on so many different levels, not just intellectual, how this process could help people find resolution or new meaning or peace of heart faster, much faster. And part of it, I believe, has to do with this solution-focused mindset. And as I also listening to the recordings, it was so beautiful to see the impact on the client when I asked a problem-focused question or when I asked a solution-focused question. And the switch was incredible. And this is the first thing that got me going.
Tell us a little bit about one of the pathways to that medicine that you and your client discovered together.
So I will go back to the last session that I had because it's so fresh in my mind. And it was with a mom who gave birth almost 15 years ago. And even after 15 years, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was like a spectator at her own birth, feeling like her hands were tied and that she couldn't do anything. So while listening to her speak about this, it came to my mind the folk tale of the handless maiden. And in this story, for the people who don't know about it, and I'm not going to say all the story, but it's a story about a maiden that under certain circumstances, she loses her hands. And from that moment on, she cannot really take care of herself, and everyone does things for her because, you know, she's limited by the fact that she doesn't have hands. And the story is about her journey into finding her own hands, let's say. And when this client was telling me her experience and her dream about what happened in her birth, you know, I remembered this story and I shared it with her. And what followed was so beautiful because then it was such a juicy conversation around, okay, what touched her from the story that I just shared with her? What is one thing that really stuck with her? What's the meaning she brings out of that? And in that meaning was her own medicine. And when she connected the dots, it was so beautiful to witness this. And this is so amazing because in every session, even though as birth story mentors, we kind of have a map, let's say, at the same time, each client brings something new to each session. And in this case, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's the power of storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah. And I discovered this in the training. I was totally unfamiliar to storytelling and using story as medicine before I met you and I started training. Yeah. But it's something that I realized even while, for example, even while I was sharing with her this story, the story moved me also. Even though now I'm familiar with it. But each time I use a story, something moves in me too.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So after the birth, if whatever happens feels unresolved, a mom will need a process to untangle that story, you know, to take it apart piece by piece and find ways to look at it in a different way, in a new way. Mm-hmm. Do that using the same tools that brought her there in the first place. So in order to move forward and not feel stuck anymore, she needs different tools to do this. And this is where birth story medicine comes to play, because we look at this from such a different angle. And we look at this with so much compassion and awareness. And what I find was so interesting that after a mom gives birth and she feels something is unresolved, and she tries to find solutions to her problem, what she normally does is she starts sharing her story to the same culture that contributed to getting her into that problem in a way. And two of the most common reactions a mom might get when she shares her birth story is either in the area of, well, don't worry about it too much, focus on the positive, you are healthy, your baby is healthy, no need to think about what already happened, and you cannot change it anyway. So look on the positive side. But this is a way of invalidating the mother's internal experience and her emotional experience. And another common reaction is that the other people join the mom in judging the medical system or the people who are present and, you know, everything that went wrong, and justifies her not feeling well with what happened. But this also doesn't bring her closer to a new meaning and a new understanding and to this peace of heart that I was mentioning before. Because again, these tools come from the same culture. So we at Birth Story Medicine, we help the mom to find different lenses to look through.
Mm-hmm.
And find new meanings in her birth story. And as you said, even though the meaning that the mom attaches to her story is very personal, her story as a whole is also a collective story. Because the collective story made her think what she thought. And now, if she cannot untangle it, and if she cannot find new meaning, what she will do is to contribute again and again to this collective culture. And this is what I believe it's so beautiful about this process, is that by doing this, we don't only help one person. It's like, in a way, we are helping the culture to heal.